All right. Welcome to our Tuesday morning Mother Hustler group. This is the first Tuesday of February. So, another new month and a new book. I think we started Super Attractor at the beginning of January, finished it, and now we're starting Judgment Detox at the beginning of February. So, a book a month would be pretty awesome from this group. So, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's jump into our birthday messages on Facebook. Always a great way to start the day. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And we should have a notification of birthdays, or mine are right here in the top right. I did not do my birthdays from yesterday either, so go ahead and do today's, and then if you need to catch up on yesterday's, you can do that. We'll give a few minutes here. So I never write on their timeline. I always just send them a personal message. It's more personal. People typically respond. So I always just tell people, happy birthday. I hope you have the best day. This is a friend I went to college with, so I'm making it a little bit more personal. Just go down the list. All right, we'll do just a couple more minutes here and then get started on the book. Do today's birthdays, yesterday's birthdays, and you can even jump all the way back to Sunday if you didn't do those. Get all caught up here. Okay, guys, are you ready for a new book? So this is another book by Gabby Bernstein, who wrote Super Chapter that we read last time, and you guys requested another Gabby book. So I found this one, and I have not read this one either. It says Judgment, Detox, release the beliefs that hold you back from living a better life. So she references quite a bit in Super Attractor, so I'm excited to read this one. We will go ahead and probably make it through track 3 today. So track 1, track 2, track 3. And here we go.
For my father, thank you for always believing in me. Simon & Schuster Audio presents Judgment Detox. Release the beliefs that hold you back from living a better life. By Gabrielle Bernstein. Read by the author. Introduction. The Judgment Detox. My fingers are trembling as I begin this introduction. I have a limiting belief on repeat. Who are you to write a book called Judgment Detox? You judge all the time. I take a deep breath and pull myself together. I have a book deal, a deadline, and a commitment. I've got to write this book. I sit in stillness with my hands on the keyboard. I take a deep breath and continue typing. Your truth is what heals. I sigh with relief and accept that the more honest and authentic I am about my own struggles with judgment, the better this book will be. I accept that my suffering is yours. No matter how spiritual, kind, or compassionate we may be, we all suffer from judgment. Judgment is all pervasive. My commitment as a spiritual teacher is to keep it real. In order for this relationship to work, I have to tell you the truth. So here goes. I struggle with judgment every day. I judge far and I judge wide. I judge strangers for divergent political views. I judge acquaintances on social media for the comments they make. I judge the way people discipline their children. I judge the girl moving too slowly in line ahead of me. I judge my husband for not responding to me exactly how I want him to respond. And of course, I judge myself for just about everything. For years, I tried to justify or rationalize or dismiss what seemed like innocent enough behavior. We get a quick hit of self-righteousness when we judge others. It's a reliable little crutch when we feel hurt, insecure, or vulnerable. Our judgments toward others make us feel better than them, smarter, savvier, more enlightened, healthier, wealthier. Inevitably, though, these feelings fade. When I judge, I feel my energy weaken and my thoughts darken. Time and time again, judgment left me feeling deeply uncomfortable, isolated, and out of alignment with the woman I want to be. My definition of judgment for this book is pretty straightforward: separation from love. The moment we see ourselves as separate from anyone else, we detour into a false belief system that is out of alignment with our true nature, which is love. Deep down, we are all loving, kind, and compassionate beings. There are many spiritual terms for this truth, such as Buddha nature, spirit, source, and God. Throughout the book, I'll refer to these truthful states as love. This separation from love is the force behind everything from playground bullying to systemic racism, xenophobic world leaders, and even terrorism. We're living in divisive times, and separation has become the norm. When we feel attacked by someone, our response is to attack back. We feel justified in fighting back and defending ourselves from attack. Of course, this only creates more separation, compounding the problem. The internet, unfortunately, can exacerbate this issue. We see people of all ages cyberbullying others via social media with devastating consequences. There are so many stories of high school and college students committing suicide over negative posts and harassment, and even more cases of otherwise happy people finding themselves depressed after comparing their lives to the curated galleries on photo sharing apps. For more than a decade, as a spiritual student and teacher, I've committed to taking an honest inventory of my fear, judgment, and separation. Through my willingness and honesty, I've been able to heal my struggles with judgment. Throughout this book, I will tell you the truth about my suffering, and I'll share the lessons that have benefited me. These are lessons that I practice daily and which have given me great relief. While I still struggle with judgment, of course, I experienced a miraculous shift. Let me be clear. The miracle is not that I rid myself of all judgmental thoughts. The miracle is that I no longer believe in them. So while the habit of judgment continues to challenge me, through my spiritual practice, I've come to accept that judgment is not who I am. To begin the journey of healing judgment and restoring love, we must recognize that we all have the same problem and the same solution. Our problem is that we separated from love, and the solution is to return to love. Let's try to understand why we separated from love in the first place. From a spiritual perspective, our life's hang-ups stem from this moment of separation when our internal voice of fear, our ego, led us astray from love, compassion, and oneness. Our separation from love can be the result of a deeply traumatic experience or a seemingly insignificant event. Regardless of the trigger, however, it first happens the moment we come to see ourselves as separate from others or not good enough in some way. The separation from love can begin as early as infancy. Babies can be born into a hostile environment that leaves them neglected and with the belief that they are unprotected in an unsafe world. Or the separation can come the moment children notice that they are being treated differently because of their race or religion or gender. In that instant, their sense of oneness is taken from them, and they learn to see the divisiveness of the world. At some point in our childhood, most of us are told we're not smart enough, strong enough, or pretty enough, or that we lack some other positive quality. We then start to see ourselves as apart from others. This separation makes us feel alone in the world. The separation can also spawn from the desire to feel special or better than. For instance, a child who grows up witnessing the consequences of privilege may come to believe the false notion that people with money are special. While we all have different stories that caused us to separate from love, we all have the same response to feeling alone in the world: fear. Separating from love is a traumatic event, and when we're traumatized, we feel unsafe. One way we respond to that feeling of fear is to fight back through attacking and judgment of others. It's an attempt to build ourselves up and lean on judgment as our great protector. The ego voice of fear thrives on the belief that we are separate. The metaphysical text A Course in Miracles teaches that the ego reinforces our separation by convincing us that we're less special or more special than others. Special implies that someone is better than you because they have more, earn more money, or are more attractive or accomplished or famous, or the right race or religion. It works the same in the other direction, where you make yourself special in the face of another's perceived lack of something. When we see the world through the lens of specialness, the dark cloud of judgment blocks us from our light and connection to others. One manifestation of specialness is the special relationship, which the ego uses to protect us from feeling the pain of separation. We feel a tremendous amount of guilt and a deeply uncomfortable sense of incompleteness as a result of separating from love and cutting off our truth. We try to find relief in someone else, choosing to believe that another person can complete us and projecting our guilt onto them. This is how the special relationship is created. The special relationship presents itself in many areas of our lives. For instance, maybe you've made your teachers or mentors special because you look up to them and they've guided you through a unique time in your life. Or maybe you've turned a romantic partner into an idol, feeling like you can't survive without his or her love and attention. Special relationships can sometimes appear harmless, like the specialness you project onto a parent. This one can seem counterintuitive because while family members may have greatly supported your growth and provided you with a source of inspiration, they are not your savior. Whomever you've made special will inevitably disappoint you in some way. Their ego will always shine through. They are human after all, and you'll be left frustrated and feeling alone. This experience reinforces the devastation of the initial feelings of separation. In response to this desolation, you'll judge the special person for not being who you thought or hoped they were. When your idol falls, you will fall with them. Whenever we believe anyone to be the source of our happiness or pain, we ultimately project our guilt onto them and begin the judgment cycle. The judgment cycle. Our true nature is love. But at some point in our life, usually in childhood, some external event causes us to separate from that true nature. That separation from love creates in us feelings of specialness or inadequacy, leading to loneliness and, as a result, fear. We want to protect ourselves from that fear, so we project it outward in the form of judgment. We know we are loving, interconnected beings, but in our separation, we live in a dream state, shutting off our connection to our loving truth. This separation establishes the ego's perception of a false self based on judgment. We grow to believe deeply in the false perception of ourselves in order to feel safe in the world of separation. Deep down, and without realizing it, we judge ourselves for separating from our truth, leading us to feel ashamed and guilty. That unconscious guilt is so painful that we have no choice but to project it outward in an effort to end our suffering. By projecting judgment onto others, we deny and repress our feelings of guilt. Subconsciously, this makes us feel even more guilty because we know this judgment is not who we really are. The guilt we feel from judging others is then projected right back onto ourselves, and the vicious cycle begins again. This is the judgment cycle. I cannot overstate this. Judgment is the number one reason we feel blocked, sad, and alone. Our popular culture and media place enormous value on social status, looks, racial and religious separation, and material wealth. We are made to feel less than, separate, and not good enough. So we use judgment to insulate ourselves from the pain of feeling inadequate, insecure, or unworthy. It's easier to make fun of, write off, or judge someone for a perceived weakness of theirs than it is to examine our own sense of lack. Judgment is an addictive pattern. Judgment is an addiction response to deep-rooted trauma. The first trauma is the separation from love. From a spiritual perspective, choosing fear and separation over love dissociates us from our truth. We become fragmented in this state of separation and lose our connection to our inner being. In this disconnected state, we inadvertently turn our back on our inner being and become obsessed with an outward projection of who we think we are. Feelings of guilt and sadness wash over us because deep down we know we've turned our back on love. But we can't fully understand our guilt, so we do whatever we can to avoid feeling it. This is how the cycle of judgment becomes an addictive pattern. When we avoid our guilt and suffering by projecting it onto others, it's a way of numbing out. Like any good drug, judgment will anesthetize our pain and redirect our focus. It can even get us high. Gossip is a great example. Whenever you get together with friends to talk about another person in a judgmental way, you're avoiding your own core wounds. You're using judgment as a drug to numb your own pain and get high on someone else's. Gossip is especially nasty because it gives us the illusion that we're bonding with others, when instead we're just banding together to heap all our pain onto another person. Gossiping can give us a buzz because it provides temporary relief from self-judgment and attack. We repeat a self-judgmental story on a loop all day long. I'm not good enough. Why did I make that mistake? I'm ugly. I'm not smart enough, and so on. All these self-inflicted behaviors are just another form of addiction. We unconsciously choose to judge rather than feel the pain beneath our wounds. But notice I said that our judgmental story is played on a loop. That's because it leads nowhere. Getting on the path to healing requires us to feel the discomfort, but we're way too scared to go there. So instead, we gossip or judge ourselves. We perceive ourselves as the victim of the world we see. Judging ourselves as the victim feels safer than facing our wounds. This is how self-judgment becomes an addiction. The addictive pattern is further fueled by our denial. We long to feel better, but deny that judgment is the problem. In fact, we see judgment as the solution, as a way of protecting ourselves. Our unconscious belief system keeps us stuck in the judgment cycle because we're terrified of facing our own pain and suffering. We use judgment to protect ourselves from exposing our deepest wounds. The repetition of judgment is habit forming. If you repeat a behavior over and over, you strengthen your neural pathways. In time, that behavior becomes second nature. The more you repeat the pattern of judgment, the more you believe in it. The metaphysical teachers Abraham Hicks say, quote, "A belief is just a thought you keep thinking," unquote. You create your reality with the thoughts you repeat and the beliefs that you align with. When judgment is your belief system, you'll always feel unsafe, under attack, and defensive. If you're going to change the habit of judgment, you need to change your core belief system. Our aim is to find our way back home, to find our way back to love. The pathway to healing judgment. From the moment of separation, we've been living in a bad dream, and the habit of judgment has kept us asleep. Healing judgment is the undoing of the dream and the return to peace. When I became more conscious of my own judgmental nature, I began to feel myself wake up. I lovingly witnessed my behavior and noticed that seemingly innocent and minor moments of judgment were just as destructive as outward negativity and attack. I could no longer ignore the guilt I felt from being stuck in the judgment cycle. Instead of pushing through it, ignoring the behavior, or choosing to deal with it later, I decided to face it head on. Therefore, I set out to heal myself from the judgment cycle. I knew that if I was serious about ending the cycle, I'd have to accept the solution, even if it meant changing a belief system I'd lived with for decades. So I put myself through a process of personal growth and spiritual development, exploring transformational practices to heal my perception of judgment for good. This is a process of undoing the belief system of judgment that has caused much suffering so that we can return to peace. Through my personal healing journey, I created the 6 steps you will find in this book. I've put myself through all the 6 steps and continue to practice them daily. By fearlessly committing to this judgment detox, here's what I've learned. First, I learned that we don't have to give up judgment altogether. In many cases, we need it. We need to discern what feels safe and what doesn't. We must honor what feels right to us morally. Also, this practice doesn't necessarily affect certain kinds of judgments, such as what to eat, who to date, or which model of car to drive. In fact, it's more useful to think of these acts as discernments or personal choices. We can use logic and intuition to discern what feels right for us, without being judgmental. It's the habit of condemning and criticizing that we must let go of. One way you know you're in judgment and not discernment is that you don't feel good. Instead, you feel defensive, fearful, or under attack. It's a sign you've separated from love and chosen fear. When you make a decision that feels good and flows from your authentic truth, you know it's not backed with the ego's judgment. Second, I learned that when we judge others, we're really judging a disowned part of our own shadow. Whatever we resent or dislike in another person is a reflection of something we dislike in ourselves or a representation of a deep wound we are unwilling to heal. Often other people trigger our wounds. We judge them when this happens instead of accepting that the discomfort is really about us. Third, I learned that judgment may give you a high at first, but it results in a hangover that really sucks. Judgment lowers our energy and weakens us physically and mentally. It makes us feel alone and cut off from inspiration and love. Finally, I discovered that as thorny and difficult as judgment may be, loosening judgment's grip is pretty simple. Look at all the fear and bring it to the light. By bringing your judgment to the light through the practices in this book, you'll begin to have a new relationship to it. Like any great detox, you'll flush out toxins so that you'll feel healthier. In your newly clear state, you become aware of how the habit hurts you and you intuitively know how to handle it. My commitment to healing my own relationship to judgment has changed my life in profound ways. My awareness of my judgment has helped me become a more mindful and conscious person. My willingness to revise these perceptions has set me free. I have been able to let go of resentments and jealousies. I can face pain with curiosity and love, and I forgive others and myself much more easily. Best of all, I have a healthy relationship to judgment so that I can witness when it shows up and can use these steps to quickly return to love. The Judgment Detox is an interactive 6-step process that calls on spiritual principles from the text A Course in Miracles, Kundalini Yoga, the emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, meditation, prayer, and other metaphysical teachings. I've demystified these principles to make them easy to commit to and apply in your daily life. Each lesson builds upon the next to support true healing. When you follow the process and become willing to let go, judgment, pain, and suffering will begin to dissolve. Before we dive into the rest of the book and start detoxing, I want to give you a short overview of each step so you know what's coming. Here's how it works. Step 1. Witness your judgment without judgment. When I started to witness how my judgmental nature made me feel, right away I could see why my life wasn't flowing. Judgment made me feel weak, sad, and disconnected. It even caused me physical pain. Once I was able to step away from the judgment and witness how it made me feel, I could truly understand how much it was blocking my happiness. In most cases, we don't even realize how judgmental we are. This is partly because we judge ourselves for our judgmental behavior. It sounds crazy, but we do it all the time. We can be tempted to criticize ourselves for our judgment or to feel shame for our thoughts or behavior. Instead, when we take an honest inventory, we must honor ourselves for having the willingness to look with love at whatever judgmental choices we've made. The way out of judgment begins when you witness the judgment without more judgment. When we look at our judgment with love, we can begin the healing process. In step 1, you'll get intimate with your judgment, identify the triggers underneath it, and get honest about how it makes you feel. You'll be guided to uncover the stories from your past that spark your judgmental behavior, and you'll come to understand how all judgment is a disowned part of your own shadow. This authentic audit of your behavior is a necessary step. Without it, you can't move on to the next phase of healing. The spiritual path to clearing judgment begins with your honest inventory. Step 2, honor the wound. The next step in healing your relationship to judgment is to honor the shadows and bring them to the light. In this step, I teach a powerful technique called the emotional freedom technique, also known as EFT or tapping. EFT is a psychological acupressure technique that supports your emotional health. I have found EFT to be one of the greatest ways to address the root cause of emotional issues that live below the surface of our judgment. The practice of EFT asks you to tap on specific energy meridians on your body. When these meridians are stimulated, they tell the amygdala, the part of the brain that triggers fight or flight or freeze response, to calm down. When the amygdala gets the message that it's safe to relax, a major shift can occur in your emotional state. I have created specific scripts to address many of our most common trigger issues. As you tap on the specific meridians, you'll be guided to address certain emotions that come up around your stress. This practice will help you heal the triggers, wounds, and traumas that live beneath your judgments. This process alone can have a huge healing effect on your life. I teach EFT in the second step of the Judgment Detox so you can feel significant relief from the get-go. Step 3, put love on the altar. Once you've witnessed your judgmental thoughts and honored the wounds through EFT, we pray. This is a practice of offering up your judgment through prayer. An essential part of this work is establishing a relationship to a power greater than you, however you might define it. Through the spiritual practice of surrender, you begin to dissolve judgment with love. Some judgments are harder than others to let go of. Some may feel especially difficult or even impossible. This is where the power of prayer comes in. You don't have to rely entirely on yourself. Instead, you can call on a power greater than you for guidance and support. Offering up your judgment through prayer lifts the burden from your shoulders while signaling to the universe that you are willing to see a person or situation differently, even if you're not sure how to do it. Prayer offers you a shift in perception, which will in turn help you see your judgments through the lens of love and compassion. If you have a hard time finding things you like about a person or a situation, you can call on compassion. When you cultivate a feeling of compassion, judgment cannot coexist. Compassion is the antidote to judgment. Instead of perceiving someone's behavior or a situation as a threat, you can witness it as a call for love. Finally, in step 3, you take time to be compassionate toward yourself. Judgment wouldn't be present if in some way you weren't calling out for love. Step 4, see for the first time. Once you've prayed and cultivated compassion, you'll be ready to shift how you see the people you've judged. We often judge others and ourselves by projecting old experiences onto our current circumstances. But when you practice seeing someone for the first time, you release them from the false projections you've put on them and the false beliefs that separate you. Instead of seeing another person through the lens of the past, you'll see them as someone calling out for love. We begin to heal our judgment toward others when we accept that people are our teachers in the classroom that is our life. Making that commitment lets us look at our situation differently. You'll witness how you drag the past into the present, and then you'll be able to choose again. You'll learn how you can choose to look at a person or a situation as if you're seeing them for the first time. Imagine how free you would be if you didn't lug your past into the present with every encounter. Remember that we are all caught in the same cycle of fear and are desperately seeking a way out. The way out is through love. Step 5, cut the cords. Learning how to see others for the first time sets you up for the powerful practice of meditation. Some of my greatest healing has occurred on my meditation pillow, because in stillness, all separation melts away and oneness is restored. Step 5 contains visualization meditations, Kundalini meditations, and mantra-based meditations to help you heal your relationship to judgment. There are 6 meditations. Practice one a day for 6 days in the order in which they are presented. Each meditation builds upon the next, helping you relinquish attack thoughts and reconnect to your inner guidance system. Following each meditation, you'll be asked to free write in your journal. This free writing process will allow your inner wisdom to come to the forefront and reveal whatever you need to know for deeper healing and growth. You'll be amazed by what comes through. After practicing the 6 meditations, I suggest you choose a favorite and make it your daily practice. These meditations will help you experience great relief and stay consistent with your judgment detox. Step 6, bring your shadows to the light. The final step of the judgment detox is to let yourself off the hook for the judgments you've made. This is possible when you understand that when you judge, you're really just looking for love. It's the true intent behind the attack. Deep down, all you want is to protect yourself from not feeling loved. It's also the intent of the person you believe has attacked you. We're all simply looking for love. In fact, attack, fear, judgment, and any form of separation are all just calls for help. When you're in physical pain, you know that your pain calls for relief. The same is true for judgment. It's a form of emotional pain that you want to relieve. You do not want to remain sick, sad, or fearful. In any given moment that you witness yourself in judgment, you can set yourself free by simply forgiving the thought. Forgive yourself for having the thought, and even forgive the thought itself. You want to be free. When you witness your judgment without judgment, accept that you have chosen fear and remain open to receiving the help you're calling for. You can liberate yourself from this pattern. The judgment detox dissolves all boundaries with love. It brings us back to this truth. We're all in it together. We all suffer. We all feel unworthy and abandoned. But identifying sameness in one another allows us to shift our focus from separation back to love. We share the thought system of fear, and we share the loving mind. We share the same capacity to choose love over fear. As my dear teacher Kenneth Wapnick said, we see that we all have the same interest of awakening from the dream of unkindness and returning to the kindness who created us kind. A world beyond judgment. If you're ready to begin the journey of undoing the false perception of separation and specialness, then get psyched for what's to come. This book offers a path to undo the pattern of judgment and return to oneness, peace, and inner harmony. There are a few things to consider, however, before embarking on this detox. First, I recommend that you stay consistent. Like any detox, the more committed you are, the greater the results will be. I also recommend that you document your progress along the way. Don't be afraid to celebrate your moments of success. This is an important part of the process, because the healthier you become, the more your ego will resist your growth. Therefore, consciously creating space to celebrate your shifts will help you avoid judging your practice. It's also important to pay attention to the ways your ego will sneak in. Whenever we shine light on the darkness, the ego works overtime. I want to call out your ego's resistance now so that you're ready for it when it sneaks up on you. The ego will deny your recovery and judge your results. Throughout the book, I'll ask you to look closely at how you've contributed to your own suffering and pain. You'll be challenged to see your shadows and witness your negative patterns. When you do this, your self-judgment will be triggered. In a space of self-judgment, we can get paralyzed with fear and may want to stop. Be aware of this now so you can identify your ego's resistance when it shows up. Every person listening to this book will fall into the trap of self-judgment along the way. I felt it throughout the entire writing process. The deeper I went into each step, the louder my inner critic became. But instead of succumbing to the voice of fear, I surrendered to the love that lives within each step. The best way to combat the voice of self-judgment is to dive deeper into the practices of the judgment detox. Each step will offer you new layers of relief and freedom. Trust the process and stay consistent. The promise of healing judgment. This 6-step practice offers many promises. Petty resentments will disappear. Compassion will replace attack. The energy of resistance will transform into freedom, and you'll feel more peace and happiness than you've ever known. I can testify to these results because I've lived them. I've never felt more freedom and joy than I have when writing and practicing these steps. And the miracles keep coming. Once you begin to feel better, you start to release your resistance to love. The more you practice these steps, the more love enters into your consciousness and into your energetic vibration. When you're in harmony with love, you receive more of what you want. Your energy attracts its likeness. So when you shift your energy from defensive judgment to free-flowing love, your life gets awesome. You'll attract exactly what you need, your relationships will heal, your health will improve, and you'll feel safer and more secure. I wrote this book to help us all feel better. As a spiritual activist, I believe that my greatest contribution to the world is to help people reconnect to the power of love. When we make this shift, we begin to vibrate at a new frequency. When you change your frequency, your family, neighbors, and friends reap the benefits. One person's energetic shift has the power to create a ripple effect across the globe. And as more and more people vibrate love, the vibrations of hate and judgment weaken. The times we're living in require our commitment to love. We are divided, fearful, angry, and traumatized. The only way to survive these times is to change our frequency. This practice is not just about feeling happier and attracting more. It's about healing the world. We all feel the call of our own inner activist. The most powerful way to respond to that call is to shift our inner life. When we make inner shifts, we intuitively know how to show up on the outside. We lead from a place of compassion and forgiveness. We become more conscious on our social media feed and in our face-to-face conversations. We become a better example for our children. And each loving thought we have becomes a peaceful protest that energetically heals the epidemic of hate in the world. One loving thought at a time creates a miracle. Follow these steps to clear all blocks, spread more love, and live a miraculous life. Important resources for support. There are several additional resources I've created and gathered to support you on your path. Throughout the book, I'll reference these, which you can find at gabbybernstein.com/book resources. Each step requires journaling exercises that you can do in your favorite notebook or in the Judgement Detox journal. The Judgement Detox journal is designed specifically for you to celebrate the miracles and document your progress every step of the way. On the resources page, gabbybernstein.com/book resources, you'll also find guided other materials that will help support your journey. Let's get started and begin step 1 of the Judgement Detox.
Okay, that was track 1 through 3 in the book. Already feel like the universe just guided us to this book because I know I personally need this, and I'm sure you guys need this in some sort of way too. And I remember Paul saying, like, when I very first started, Paul Gravett, one of our CEOs, would hop on these calls like a couple times a week and we could dial in, and he was like, judgment is the number one block to your business. Like, that's why it's so important to get people on the phone, and because when we just go and look at their social medias or we meet them in person, like, we automatically create this judgment towards them, and judgment is like the number one block of them actually thriving with you. If you can do it in a way where you're not judging them, you can't see them, you know, we hear their voice, but that's about it, then we don't make those judgments because we can't see the person. So pretty cool. I think we can all benefit from this, whether it's business or just personal lives in general. Like, I know I definitely need this. So I'm excited. All right. That was the audio for today. Let's move into our stories. So just super important to stay consistent on our story, talking about Thrive, showing people our personal life, what we have going on. So I know I have not posted anything about Thrive on my story yet this morning, Thrive Nutrition or Thrive Skin. So I'm going to jump into that. If you have posted a little bit about that this morning, maybe you want to make a post about your kids, your family, inspirational quote, all of us on Zoom together, whatever it may be. Just, it is important to talk about Thrive, sprinkle that in through the day, but then also just talk about personal life too. That way you're not bombarding people just with Thrive only on your story. You're opening up and showing them more than just that. So maybe it's a funny like meme or whatever. people love to laugh too. So let's work on that. Oh, yes. Good point, Deja. So she just said it's Transformation Tuesday. Those are great stories and posts, like whether it's your transformation or somebody else's transformation. That's a great idea for Tuesday. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to put that in my planner right here, actually, so I can just remember to do some transformations throughout the day. Okay. Hopefully, you had some time to post and get something on your story about Thrive or something personal, inspirational, transformations today. So, let's just take a couple minutes here. And since it is the beginning of the month, let's try to bring new people into our business, get new people interested, open up new connections. I always suggest either going on Facebook and going to friends and suggested friends. That way, there you can find people that Facebook thinks that you should be friends with, that you just aren't connected to yet. If it's on Instagram, I always suggest going into the search bar at the top and searching a hashtag, something that you could connect with to somebody new, whether it's maybe the city that you live in. I will search Columbia, where I live, a lot, and I'll find new people here local because I feel like that's a person local that you can connect with. Like sometimes it's hard because you might not have much in common with somebody else. Whereas if they're in your town and you're following them and they're following you back, they might be asking for suggestions around town and you could pop in and give them a suggestion. That gives them a reason to look at your page. Like it's just a really good way to connect with people. So I always suggest that, or maybe going to the town closest to you and searching there and finding people to follow. If you follow them, I always suggest like liking a couple of their posts or commenting on a couple of their posts. That way you're really showing up in their feed. They're going to look at your profile and more than likely follow you back. So let's take a couple of minutes to do that. Let's just make it a goal to follow 3 new people, and then we'll go ahead and be done for today. Okay, we've been just over an hour here, so I will let you guys go. Deja, good point. Okay, so she said on Maria's team page, which is Team Thrive Nation, she put a post up asking for people to share their transformation photos with permission for us to share. So if you want to go snag some transformation pictures, that's a good place to look is on social media. And Deja, I might actually make a post on my team page today as well. That way it's a little bit more personal with people in our team that are, closest to us because I feel like obviously I will share before and afters or transformation pictures that are of just anybody, but kind of is easier when you know the person or you're able to talk to them and then share it on your wall just because you have a story to tell if anybody asks. So I will make a post up right now. This is recorded, so it will be on our YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and record it or upload it on YouTube channel now. That way it's there if you have anybody that wants to watch it, and I'll post that it's on our YouTube as well. So look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. We will go ahead and continue Judgment Detox. We'll be ready for track 4 tomorrow. So have a great Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, same place, same time. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.